Okay.
All right, thank you, Dave. And hello and good day to everybody that's on the call. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to today's webcast. My name is Carrie Lawson. I'm the partner marketing representative here at Viewpoint. I've been with Viewpoint for about 9.5 years, and I really get pumped and excited when I get to help our customers. And there's a few ways I get to accomplish this. One of those ways is by providing opportunities where our customers get to share their stories of success with other customers, like we get to do today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items. We are recording today's session, so all attendees will be in listen-only mode. We do encourage everyone to please ask questions and interact with us. You can submit your questions by typing them into the chat box in your GoToWebinar doc. If for some reason we're unable to answer your questions live, a TopBuilder representative will be more than happy to follow up with you after the presentation. I also want to mention that TopBuilder has uploaded a PDF for you in the handout section, so feel free to download that if you wish, as it might give you a little bit more information about who they are and what they do. After the webinar has completed, we will be sending out the link to the webinar recording, so you can watch it again if you wanted, or you can forward it to a colleague or a friend. But along with the recorded webinar, we'll also be including a link to the handout, so you'll have access to all of the content after the webinar is completed. For today, I am pleased to present Dave Knowles over at TopBuilder. For the last 9 years, TopBuilder has been a strategic partner, and what that means is we work very closely together to ensure the integration between Spectrum and TopBuilder CRM is really tight and seamless. The folks over at TopBuilder are so fun and easy to work with, and in my experience, when any issues have come about, TopBuilder has been on it, and the issues get resolved really quick. I really don't have to worry about them. And one of the best things is that due to how knowledgeable TopBuilder's employees are with CRMs and in the construction industry itself, they really understand what challenges you all are faced with on a daily basis. TopBuilder has been able to acquire thousands of users, ranging anywhere from subcontractors to specialty contractors to general contractors, all the way to land developers, and even residential builders across North America are finding a way to make their process more efficient by using TopBuilder. During today's webinar, Dave is going to discuss how leveraging information from multiple data sources can be one of the most powerful assets at your fingertips. Using a CRM or learning about what a CRM can do is a topic that's been growing a lot over the years, and I've heard there's some confusion about what a CRM is, but mostly what I hear is, how can a CRM help me? So we have a surprise guest that will share their story about how having a CRM integrated with their ERP has improved their success in bid management with current and their future customers. So without further delay, I'm pleased to pass the baton back over to Dave Knowles.
Thank you, Carrie. That was awesome. All right. So this is what we're going to be covering today. Carrie already covered a lot of the background. I want to touch on a couple points about TopBuilder for you guys to give you a little bit of background on us and where we're coming from and kind of what our purpose is. We have a couple quick poll questions. The poll questions are designed to help us get a little bit of background on our audience so that we can tailor the discussion towards your needs and what you're currently doing. Then we're going to jump into the why. And the why is, why are we here? What is the whole point of talking about bridging technology gaps? What do we accomplish with that? Then instead of having to listen to me, you get to hear it from a real person, a real customer, to talk about how they do those things in the real world. And that's with Paige Porter of B Haynes, and I'll introduce her when we get to that point. I think it's exciting stuff. As Carrie said, we will be following up after the webinar. The follow-up email will contain links to the recording and to these slides and to the handout, and certainly be requesting some time if you guys want to talk about some of these things to get under the hood and really look deep down into how we do these things. Because frankly, when we're talking about bridging technology and bridging data together, we're talking about really complex issues. Sometimes we're going to cover it high level here, but I think the benefits are pretty obvious and pretty evident. Okay, so I'll jump into that. We'll do a QA at the end, and if we don't have a lot of questions, I'll keep an eye on the time. We'll just show you some example reports. But I'll keep an eye on the time, and if we have time to go through some of the examples, we will. They're in the slide set, though, if you want to take a look. They are at the back. Okay, so let me dive in real quickly and talk about TopBuilder real quick. We've been around for a little bit. The company officially started in 2008. However, our backgrounds in construction and in software and CRM go back a very long ways into the 1980s. Our founders and our current owner-operators do have construction and engineering related background. I personally have a degree in mechanical engineering and was an engineer in construction for several years. And we also owned and operated specialty contracting companies, so roofing companies in particular and roofing supply companies, which does give us a perspective on the construction, but also we spent 32 years in the CRM and the software world, and CRM really wasn't a term, frankly, 32 years ago in 1987, but sales and marketing was, and we spent many years in CRM. I was the CRM manager for Hewlett-Packard for 11 years and a consultant. And we focused a lot of different industries. So I saw lots of different industries and how they implement a Salesforce or Oracle or Siebel or something else. And I learned a lot from those experiences, and we bring those lessons to you guys. Now, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, we get from talking to customers. And I want to say this before I forget. We will be at Viewpoints Collaborate again this year. And a lot of the things that we talk about today in this webinar are things we learned about by actually sitting down with CFOs of companies and CEOs of companies and owners of construction companies and learning about their problems and what keeps them up at night. I can tell stories all day long. But please come see us and talk to us and collaborate this year and try to share some of your concerns that you have with your business and see if we can't talk through that. Okay, as Carrie said, we have 400 builders across the U.S. and Canada of all different types and sizes, very, very large commercial contractors down to small landscaping contractors, as an example. And then we've got a couple offices in Houston and in Atlanta. So I didn't want to go too much into that, but I'm going to go on to the poll question. Okay, so real quickly, I'm going to do this quick. So guys, jump in and answer this question. So we have a poll question on how your company currently prioritizes your bid activity. I'm launching the poll now. I'm not real good at this, so hopefully I'll be able to manage through it. I don't see any answers yet. Getting some. This is great. You know what? I'm going to just take a screenshot of this. Okay, looks like we have a bunch of folks that do bid review meetings to prioritize their bid activity. 50% general knowledge of the job, so they decide, I guess, at that point whether they want to accept the bid or not. A small portion doesn't do anything. They just bid everything. And I'm going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the results are 29% conduct bid review meetings, 0 in Excel, 0 custom tracking software, 57% general knowledge of the job or the job type or the customer, and then 14% you bid everything. That's interesting. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next poll real quickly. And again, there's a point to this. The next poll is, how does your company forecast labor? I'm launching the poll now. And I'm going to try not to cough in your ear. Okay. Forecast labor, custom software, Excel, 50-50 right now. We got a pretty big group. It's That's a weird split. Okay. Some people do it on the whiteboard. All right, that's a pretty even number. Maybe not everybody voted, but let me close the poll. Okay, so here's what we have. 25% of you folks manage your labor forecast on a whiteboard, 50% in Excel, and 25% using custom software. That's interesting. All right, we're going to talk about this. Okay, so let's get into the why, okay? Why do we care about bridging technology gaps? Why is it important to our company? Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what does that mean when we talk about bridging technology gaps. It's kind of vague, I guess. But what we're talking about here is bridging data primarily, at least in this webinar, bringing in customer data, job history, bidding and estimating information from your bidding software, your estimating software, and combining that with sales data or your bid opportunities, okay, and doing so by integrating job cost accounting software, ERP, your bidding or your estimating software, project management software, and your CRM. Okay. All right. So once you bridge all this data and these technology gaps, we're calling them here, what do you do with that? Why do you need that information, and how is it useful to you? Well, first of all, you want to use that information combined to effectively prioritize your bid activity. Okay. All right. So how do you do that? Well, you can take all this data that you've had on all your customers and all your bids and all your estimates that you've done, and be able to create a scenario where you can view the likeliness of you getting awarded certain jobs, and look at that maybe by job type, by job customer. But really what you're looking for is, what is the probability that I'm actually going to get this job? Okay. And not waste my time, in other words. And so what you're looking at doing is, you may look in your data that you pulled in from your bidding system, your CRM system, jobs that go directly into other places, and say, this customer keeps giving me bid opportunities but awards me zero, nothing. We hear that all the time. Why would you waste your time? That's just an extreme example, but you want to, if you've got a lot of bid activity that you can't keep up with, and maybe you don't have labor available, then you want to be a little pickier and prioritize your bids. And that's how you do it, is to get data from all these systems. Now, you also want to look at, well, what's the likeliness that I'm going to actually make money on this job? Okay. What's my profitability by customer, by job type, all kinds of different parameters that you might look at to say, am I going to make money on this job or not? Or am I wasting your time? One of the things to look at is, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, but do I have the labor? Because if you don't have labor, and this came up from a discussion we had to Collaborate, if I don't have the labor, I got to go hire people or bring in temps. That shrinks my margins, and I may not make money off of it. So you may want to not bid on it unless it's a job that you're going to make a lot of money on. Okay, and then the other part of that is avoiding risky jobs. Okay, jobs that may be complicated and not well defined, but very importantly, looking at customer information to see, is this customer actually paying their bills? Do they have credit? We heard lots of stories in Collaborate how people lost money because they bid out jobs to people that weren't paying their bills, didn't have credit, and one guy came in with a customer that was in bankruptcy and he lost $100,000. So these are things that you can do with this data. Another thing that you want to make sure you can do is to put together jobs that are actual real jobs, okay? Jobs that are committed jobs, and then combine those jobs with what's in your pipeline, in your bid pipeline. So all your bid opportunities, put them on a job board or a forecast that says, here's all my committed jobs and here's what I have in my pipeline. Do I have the labor, or do I have too much, or have too little labor? Do I need to increase my bidding activity, or do I have too much labor? Okay. And then you use that to also plan your labor, plan your resources, plan your revenue. Again, putting all that together, committed jobs that are in your ERP or in Spectrum against once in your sales pipeline and your CRM, see what that looks like on a forecast. Okay, and so this number 3 here is where CRM comes in really strong. And so what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to follow up on your opportunities, follow up on your jobs, continue to market to your customers, nurture your customers, and make sure when you get these bid opportunities, you're properly following up on them. And that's what CRM does the best. Now, you may not have all this data in CRM because it may live in your bidding software. It may, you may have bids going directly into your bidding software, okay, and CRM doesn't know about it yet. So you pull that out of your bidding software, you put it on CRM, and then you have the follow-up and the marketing and the customer nurturing that you get from a good construction-specific CRM. And also you want to pull in jobs that are customers that are coming from your ERP, from your project management, from Spectrum, because jobs will go right into Spectrum and they'll become jobs, but they'll never go through CRM. Well, you want CRM to know about that so that you can follow up with those customers, you can market to them and nurture them to get the next bidding opportunity. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about here, at least for now, is you want to be able to use this data you have on jobs, to get more opportunities from your existing work. Okay, Paige may talk about that a little bit, but this is key. So a lot of new construction going on. You want to make sure you follow up on that to get the next phase of the work, to get the service contract, to get the maintenance agreement. And if you don't know that job is done by integrating that data from Spectrum or integrating that data in from other places, you may not know that job is complete or almost complete, and then you don't follow up at all. So you don't get the opportunities that hang off the end of that job. We're working with a very, very large electrical contractor right now, and they're smart. When the job is 75% complete, they're getting that information out of Spectrum, and then what they're doing is they're chasing after the follow-up work before the job is done. So they actually get their marketing department, their sales teams, and their project managers following up on those jobs when they hit the 75% complete mark, and then they're off and running and following up on that. And they're increasing their service business, their maintenance work, their inspection work tremendously by doing this, okay? So that's the why. I call it the who cares slide. I mean, why do we care about this stuff? It's very important to be profitable, to be bidding on the right jobs and avoiding the risky ones, okay? All right, so I am going to go ahead and move on to the next phase of the webinar here real quick. And I'm going to introduce, I didn't mean to do that, sorry. I'm going to introduce Paige Porter from B Haynes. We thank her tremendously for being with us today because she's busy, but she did, she wanted to join our webinar and share some of her thoughts with us today. Paige Porter has been with us for a while. She's been with us since 2016. She is the business development manager and the strategic planning consultant for B Haynes. And I'm going to let her fill in some of the blanks and on her background, and then I'm going to ask her a few questions in a second. But we appreciate having her. They're doing tremendous things over at B Haynes and putting these best practices to work. So we appreciate having her share some of this with us. So Paige, I don't know if you can talk now, but you want to give us a little background?
Yes. Can y'all hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. So actually, in my former life, B Haynes was a customer of mine, and then I left and went out on my own and came over here a little over 3 years ago and started working with them in a consultant capacity, looking at operations. And it's a unique company in the fact that we have 10 disciplines here. So we do everything from general contracting to solar, electric, plumbing, mechanical, just turnkey. But formally, every discipline or every division operated autonomously. And then I think it was 2013 they became an ESOP. So we started moving more in the direction of having more consistency and collaboration across the organization. And with 700 employees, sometimes that's difficult to do, especially when it's a new practice. So we started speaking with TopBuilder, given that Spectrum was our ERP, and moved into a CRM management program, which allows us to take, all of our ERP data represents the projects that we have, work in progress and historical project data. But what we were missing was the bidding piece of it. So where could we collaborate across the organization and leverage the relationships that we had in those individual divisions and grow our revenue? So as Dave mentioned earlier, all the facets of the CRM, we're using it, but specifically two of the things that we're doing that is helping us leverage those relationships is on Mondays, leadership from every division gets together and they talk about a multitude of things, but they bring reports out of TopBuilder that allows us to sit down and look at what marketplace bidding opportunities exist and where can we participate in those collaboratively, what disciplines are represented in there, and just look at, what are our opportunities, and then overlay that with our schedule and see which ones can we fit in and what's our strategic bidding process. So electric might have spots in their schedule where they can take on new work, but plumbing can't. So it allows us to strategically cut or surgically cut within those bidding opportunities and maximize to keep our schedules full and keep people working. So Monday is what I call our collaboration day, where we sit roundtable with each division. And then Thursday, the individual divisions get together, and that's their strategic balancing day. So they look at all their work in progress. They take all of the bidding opportunities that they have with estimated start and end dates and overlay that and say, hey, where do we need to fill in spots? Where are we full that we need to turn away work? How aggressive do we get with these bidding opportunities? Do we go in conservative? So it gives us that more, holistic view of our marketplace opportunities across the entire division, and then at the division levels, the entire company and at the divisional level, to make sure that we're balancing our resources. So resources are the biggest challenge in the construction industry, and I'm preaching to the choir on this call, but it's a constant adjustment and balancing act that we have to partake in, and this data helps us tremendously. Coupled with our ERP data, it gives us a full picture.
Fabulous.
And Dave had also mentioned, the other thing it allows us to do is look at projects that are coming up on completion or projects that have been completed, the proactive and the reactive approach of how do we transition construction projects into service contracts or maintenance agreements. And that's even if we're not the successful installing contractor. So if we bid on a project and we know it came to fruition, but we weren't the one who won, if it's a price-based bid, we can go back in there and try and vie for the service piece of it.
Wow.
That is it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Paige. Yeah, and so I'm going to elaborate a little bit about this, and I'll ask Paige a couple of questions here. So what's happening is they're getting data from Spectrum on a regular basis. They're essentially synchronizing the customers and the customer contacts, their job history, and then the financial history of the jobs. And then, along the way they're updating, I think I said this already, but start dates and end dates of the jobs, because they're very fluid. We all live in a construction world, right? And we know that start dates and end dates change a lot. We also know that labor requirements change as the scope changes on jobs. And then we also understand that change orders are a way of life. And getting updated financials from the place where it lives, which is Spectrum or job cost accounting, is the place to get that data, and then use that data with the changes of the start dates and the end dates and the labor hours to prioritize their bidding but also understand where the changes are in their labor requirements so that they can react. And then, they can also, and B Haynes isn't doing this quite yet, but, one of the things that we're talking about is, looking at profitability and making sure that when we do win jobs, and I'm not talking specifically about B Haynes here, I'm talking in general, but specifically if we're going to be bidding out jobs, then let's make sure we're bidding the right ones and we're bidding the ones that are most likely to make us money, especially when labor's tight. Now, when labor's not so tight, then maybe you might go after them. But these are decision instruments that are available, and B Haynes is very on the cutting edge of this stuff, and it's amazing to watch them. I want to go sit in one of these meetings one of these days, and one of the Monday morning meetings, and be a fly on the wall and just listen to them. But yeah, they do amazing things over there. And so, Paige, is there anything else you want to add around like the prioritizing, how you're prioritizing the bids, or deciding when you want to accept a bid or decline it? Is there anything there that you might want to elaborate on?
So, and it varies by division, but they take things into consideration. We use like a pre-bid scorecard, which will have us look at things like how many competitors are bidding, how many people were invited, of course, what's the time frame, the start and end date of the project, what's the history with the general contractor if it's one of our subcontracting divisions, what's the propensity to win, and because it's not only a matter of dedicating the time to the actual construction work, but where do we spend our estimating resources, and how do we best utilize those? So there's a variety of factors depending on all the landscape of what's going on in the individual divisions at that particular moment that goes into account.
Right, and you touched on a key point there, and that is, what is the history with a particular customer or a particular job type, or quite frankly, the size of the job. I mean, how well is it? I'm talking a little general here, but how well is it defined? I mean, if the job scope and the requirements aren't very well defined, then it's tough to bid those with a lot of confidence. And that's really important. Paige, do they ever? And we may get into the information you can't share, and we respect that for sure. But is there any times when you're looking at the credit worthiness of a customer, or whether they pay their bills, or if they've got too many outstanding invoices? Do you ever take a peek at that?
Every day.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, you're not the only one. And so this information, I mean, it seems like kind of a lot of information, but if you can bridge the technology gaps between all these systems and bring in that information into one, dashboard or scorecard or, bid sheet, to be able to kind of put it all on one example of, the history with this customer, and maybe even look at the history with this estimator on this type of job, the credit worthiness of the customer. You've got some good information that's right there in your face, frankly, and it's a snapshot of what you need to make a decision. Now, nothing's perfect, but it sure is better than not having the data and not being able to use this information, which is, data is data. It's history. It's there, and you have it available to decide, how to move forward with these jobs. Okay, so
yeah, and I just wanted to I wanted to add one other thing, Dave. And there's a post-mortem component to evaluating a project when it comes to completion, but there's also post-mortem analysis that can be taken into account when it comes to the estimating. So how effective are our estimating skills in collecting that won and lost data reason? So, one estimator may be more effective at bidding a certain type of job or a certain component of a bid. So having that won-loss data is also very helpful for strategic planning to go forward.
Oh, very good. So we didn't. That's awesome, Paige. Thank you for bringing that up. So that is one of the things. I mean, we only have so much time and so much space on our slide, frankly. But that is also one of the things on the why part of this, and that is, and we do tend to focus on that on a different webinar. But what we're talking about here is, trying to make improvements and finding opportunities to improve by looking at why you're winning your bids, why are you losing your bids, looking at the performance or the closure rates of your different estimators across different customers, job types. You can even look at it by industry, job size, what's the source of the lead, where's it coming in from, and try to make some decisions around how can we improve on not only our closure rates, but also our profitability, for the jobs that we are winning or closing. Very, very, very important. Thanks, Paige. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Okay, so we met our time frame at 30 minutes, and we're going to spend a couple minutes answering questions and see how many we have. If we have too many, we can certainly follow up and get your questions later, or if we don't have enough, we can show you some examples of some of these things. So if you have a question, put it in the chat box. Not chat bot, chat box. Okay, I don't really have any questions. Oh, here's a question. Okay, so what is involved in setting all this up? I mean, this sounds, I can see where that's coming from. So, this sounds great, right? So, pie in the sky, and we have, bridging technology gaps, but that's work, right? So what does it take to get this all set up? Well, setting up if you're already on Spectrum, setting up the CRM is pretty straightforward and pretty, sorry about that. I'm going to try to make sure we don't, there we go. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. An interface should be pretty straightforward, as long as it's already, as long as it's not under development, to be able to hook it up, test it, verify the data, and we're talking a couple days for each, but that's for each integration point. Okay, so if you're integrating with Spectrum, give it a couple days at least to get connected, verify the data. We're going through this with some big customers right now to make sure you got the data verified, and then move forward. But that's per connection point. So, if you're connecting to project management, Spectrum, bidding software, give it at least a few days for each integration point. Now, setting up the CRM, I can't speak for Spectrum, but CRM is a matter of a few days or a week, depending on the data that you have to convert and bring in. All right, great question. Okay, so let's just take a couple minutes. I want to show you a couple examples, and then we'll conclude the webinar. So Paige talked a little bit about looking at the job history. So let's assume for a second a bid opportunity comes in, and we're pulling in job history for a customer, and we're summarizing that. So before you accept the job, you can pull up a scorecard, and that will summarize everything. But you could take a quick peek for this customer and say, okay, well, how many active jobs do we have? Are they profitable? Okay, that's interesting. But you might also want to look at, are they paying their bills, and is there credit available, okay, for that customer, or we have a potential risk there. And then that's another integration point with Spectrum. And then for your bidding software, to bring in bid history for this customer. How many bids were declined, resubmitted, lost, are outstanding or pending, and how many were awarded. I would say this customer has a pretty good track record of awarding you jobs if this is your customer. And this would, in my opinion, would be a good one to accept. Okay. And then I'll show you a quick bid scorecard. So looking at a particular job, again, breaking down your history and your closure rates using many different parameters. The job type, the estimator working on the job in terms of their win rates or their connection rates and their profitability, maybe the scope and the size of the job, how effective is the customer, or what's the track record with the customer in terms of awarding you jobs, competitors, as Paige said, bidding on it, project manager and their effectiveness, clarity of the request for quote, difficulty and risk factors, all the way down to some warnings to say, does the customer have credit and are they paying their bills? So that's an example of something you might want to look at. All right, so I want to thank everybody for joining us. We do have a slide on here with our contact information. Delisa Medlin is our Director of Strategic Partners. She's here. She will be reaching out afterwards. And again, if you're at Collaborate, come see us. And thank you very much, Paige, and thank you very much to Carrie for hosting this and sponsoring this for us. We appreciate it very much.